Hello, here's my beautiful Xray X1, and today I will make the biggest change in setup, respectively tuning part for the chassis. I have bought the aluminium chassis. The aluminium chassis is 2 mm thick and the original carbon chassis is 2.5 mm thick. Therefore you need also this alu rear pod lower plate, which has the same thickness of 2 mm. Otherwise you would have here a gap, of course. Anyways, it is quite expensive. It cost me over 90 euros and this is 30 euros. So these small aluminium plates are over 120 euros. But at least on the track where I race, you need this. It's by the way, this Xray X1 has 4 different chassis. Standard, it's a 2.5 mm carbon, which is very good all-around chassis. You can have the thinner one, the 2 mm carbon for really low traction tracks. Then the aluminium chassis are always 2 mm thick. The aluminium flex chassis is available with the cutouts here, but this is a closed one, so this is the stiffest version of it. And I've bought the stiffest version because I will at least mainly race at the Megadrome in Haslo, near Hamburg in Germany, and this is a really ultra high grip track. And this chassis is for high and very high grip. And everybody who uses this aluminium chassis on his Formula car is at least minimum 0.4 seconds faster. So I reached in the last race with my mainly stock chassis 14.9 second lap. The fastest guys at this day reached 14.3. So maybe with some practice and with this tuning option, at least 0.5 faster would be 14.4, and then I would be close to the super fast guys there. But we will see. Yeah, it's also a matter of practice, etc. But I see also average drivers and so on, everybody who uses this becomes faster. So I will make also a weight comparison when I disassembled my car, and I have the carbon chassis here. I will make a weight comparison between carbon chassis and aluminium chassis, because this aluminium chassis will be a little bit heavier, which is very good in this case because it's on the lowest point of the car, and you will lower the center of gravity once again for this chassis, which is also great on a high traction track. So you have less potential to flip over the cars in curves, etc. And this stiff aluminium chassis will make the car also more agile. It steers better, at least makes sense, because I think here's a lot of flex in the chassis on this point, where only the ESC and receiver is glued on the chassis. So when you have flex in front of the car, you have more steering, but you have enough steering on this track. You need a car that is that drives very safety and has no tendency to flip over, but it's still very agile. And also this flex in the chassis, I think this is good for gain traction, but on this high traction you lose this agility from the chassis. So I'm very excited at least to check this out. I will now build this chassis into the car, and then we see. Furthermore, before I start, I have one additional upgrade. It's a Serpent Diffuser, which is fit for the most Formula chassis, because fortunately they have a kind of standardization here for the wing mount, etc. So this part looks very nice. It's very light and thin plastic. So I'm an engineer and I'm very interested in motorsports and aerodynamics, etc. And a diffuser is of course on every real Formula car and on every real sports car where they have a closed ground. But this is the point. Cars need closed ground surface, and you see here the diffuser will sit like here approximately. So I have to first disassemble the rear wing, and then the diffuser comes on this place, but directly in front of the diffuser is this cutout for the motor, that it sits as low as possible. And how a diffuser works is the following. The air which moves into the diffuser has more space, and so the pressure sinks. This means for the air below the chassis that it moves faster, and to fill the gap of the low pressure here. And when the air below the chassis moves faster, the pressure sinks, and this presses the whole car to the ground. And this is how a diffuser works. And when you have this hard gap here, I am not sure if this will really work. Maybe I can work here with thin Lexan to close this gap. I must see if this is feasible. Maybe I have to play around with something. Would be nice if there would be a 3D printed part or something like this which closes these gaps here. Anyway, people always say the diffuser helped them to improve the car. I will see. I will mount this diffuser to the car. It was only €6.90, so it's not very expensive, and it's great looking, because every real Formula car has a diffuser, and so I want to have this real look to it, and if it helps, it's fine. If not, doesn't matter. Another function of this diffuser is like a rear bumper, because when you have this diffuser here, approximately, so the gear here is the main gear is covered, and it may happen during a race when a car crashes into you that it destroys the gear, and this diffuser would cover the gear. So it's also like a rear bumper. Maybe the people who installed this and said, yeah, it is really an improvement to the car. Maybe it's only through the weight. I mean, I have here the scale and it's 9 grams. So first at all, adding 9 grams, yes, at the rear end of the car may settle this car even more to the track. It's plus 9 grams and it's on a very low area, like the aluminium chassis. I add here weight on the lowest part of the car, so which will bring the center of gravity even more down. And maybe these are the factors that make for the people an improvement by using the diffuser. But this is all theory. I'm very excited to test all these improvements, but now I will take my screwdriver and I will put in the new chassis. So we are back and the car is disassembled, and here are the carbon plates from the chassis, and they are about 64 grams. So let's see this beautiful aluminium chassis, 64 versus 91. So we have plus 27. So this is not too much, but it's, as said, on the lowest point of the car, and this is not a bad improvement. The main improvement is of course the flex of the chassis. You feel it. I can bend this a little bit, and this is really way stiffer, and this is the main improvement of the car, the stiffness of the chassis. So my X1 is finished, finally. So here's the aluminium chassis. Looks nice, but actually it's just a black chassis. And actually it was more work than expected, so maybe I won't change this anymore. It's perfect for the track conditions at the Megadrome, but when I want to race somewhere else, normally I can use the carbon chassis as a setup option, but changing the chassis is really quite a lot of work, and I do not know if I would ever swap this again. Furthermore, I installed the diffuser. Looks very nice. Here's at least no gap between the rear pod plate and the diffuser. And first I thought I had to put some spacers between the end plate here and the diffuser, but this is a direct fit without any spacers. But I had to dremel down a little bit from the inner side of the diffuser on the round shape, so that it fits at the edge of this rear plate here. But at least no problem. Looks very good. I have now two possible opportunities to mount the wing to the diffuser. I choose the lower one, and then I cannot move it further back because of the form of the diffuser. There is at least not enough space, but it's okay in this position. Looks very good, and I think this should work quite well. So furthermore, as I said, I have here this big gap directly in front of the diffuser, and I took an old piece of Lexan and I cut it and I put it between the rear pod and the motor mount aluminium thing here. So I hope this is not a problem, that this motor and the whole stuff which is on the rear plate moves a little bit higher, but the Lexan plate is 0.5 millimeter thick. The edges I sand it down a little bit, so maybe we have only 0.3 millimeters, so I think this is not a problem. But this fits very nice and looks really good now. I have a almost closed ground surface, and here are the openings for the motor, so the motor cooling is still there from the ground, from top anyways, and I guess it won't get any temperature problems. And then I had this 2 millimeter gap here at the edges, and even this I tried to eliminate. I put this black cleaning putty on it. What is cleaning putty? It's this Orkan cleaning putty or Reinigungsknete. You can hide your cables, for example, with this like Play-Doh stuff. And here is another gap. When the air goes over this gap, I can clean this also with this putty. So quite simple. I put this here and move it, and at least I will later make it more beautiful. Later you have this very nice surface over here. Maybe this is only a magnet for dirt, then I can remove it anyways. I can also remove this plate if it doesn't work. We will see, but at least I won't try this. So furthermore, I cleaned up the wiring. These black wedges are only the wires for the transponders, so 2 of them, because this A and B is for racing, and for normal training they have only the Robitronic time measuring at the track, which is optical, so I use this one, but I have actually both mounted in it, so I didn't have to swap it around. And here are the cables of the servo and the ESC, so I put them into this black tape here, and they are directly between the ESC and the receiver. So this looks quite good. These are quite long, but they must be a little bit longer, because the rear pod, the motor moves a little bit and must move freely. So maybe you recognized one stuff, and this is this part. This is a stiffener for the chassis, and I took this inspiration by the fastest guy on the track. He has also a longer top deck, like this part is longer, and he moves it to the this part where the shock is mounted on. And so I have also this kind of top deck. This is a part which was originally at the rear wing, but due to the mount of the diffuser I don't need this anymore. And the ball ends and this ball end caps and this part I had in my spare tires, and I built this small construction. So actually here is the first mounting on the chassis, and all these mountings stiffen up the chassis, which is good for my purpose. And here's the mountings of the end mountings of the front suspension. Here starts the servo mounting, and here's the servo, the last point mounted on the chassis, and from here till the end the chassis can move freely. And so I eliminate this by adding these parts. So also from here till here it's now even stiffer, and we will see if this will work. I can change this very fast, just swap it out and that's it, and I can try both. Maybe I feel nothing, no difference, maybe it's even more agile. So from the theoretically setup it should work very well, and actually the super fast guy at the track did this also in some kinds to his chassis. So why not try this? Okay, that's it. Everything is mounted. I am now excited to bring this car to the track and see if I can drop my times. I hope I can. And the next competition will be also quite soon. So stay tuned. Subscribe if you haven't already. I really appreciate this. And if you like the videos, press the thumbs up button. And if you want to leave a comment or a question, you are welcome to do this, of course. Okay, see you next time. Bye bye.